We continue now at the top of Daf Meseches and Aleph in Meseches Kiddushin. This is Kiddushin Daf 68a. This daf is sponsored by Sean Kashani. Thank you for your sponsorship. If you would like to sponsor an Amud or a daf, please see the description box below and see the description box below to see how you can support this channel. On the previous Amud, the Gemara said that all our rayas are compared to one another, and therefore we learn out just like by Achos Isha. So we say by Achos Isha the Kiddushin does not take effect. So too by all our rayas the Kiddushin does not take effect. And the Gemara continues, if so, afilu nida nami, the same should be true by a nida. And Rashi explains, afilu nida nami, im kidesh penuya b'mei nido. So let's say somebody's mekadesh, an unmarried woman, while she's a nida. Lo lahave kiddushin, it should not be a kiddushin. V'im ba'aleh b'nidas, if he has relations with her when she is a nida. Yehavlad mamzer, similarly the child should be a mamzer. And so the Gemara therefore asks, Aloma Omer Abaye, why did Abaye say, this is in Yevamis that Abaye said, Hakol modim, everybody admits, Bebo al hanido v'al hasota. If somebody has relations with a nida or with a sota, she'ein havlad mamzer, that the child is not a mamzer. And the Gemara answers to that. Amar Chizkiah says, Amar Kra, that the pasuk says, Utihini dasa olav, it says that the nida is upon him. Afilu b'shas nidasa, what you understand that pasuk to mean is, even at the time that a woman is a nida, that she is a nida, teheba havoya, there's still going to be havoya. Havoya here refers to kiddushin, meaning to say that the kiddushin is still going to take effect. And Rashi explains, Hakol modim, everybody admits, Shimon hateimoni do amar yesh mamzer mechayve krisa, Shimon hateimoni, who says that there is mamzer in situations of chayve krisis, meaning arayas, where there's a chi of kare, so the child is going to be a mamzer. But modeh bebo al hanida, he admits that if one has relations with a nida, there the child is not going to be a mamzer. And similarly for Rabbi Akiva, damar yesh mamzer mechayve lavin, Rabbi Akiva, who says that there's mamzer in situations, let's say you have situations of acts of relations that are chayve lavin, modeh bebo al hasota, he admits by a situation where one has relations with a sota, tekino lav in Isra, let's say you warned her and she went into seclusion to have a olav belav, so there the violation, if you have relations with her, is a losa, say it's a lav, to lo yuchal bala v'gomer, that's the pasuk of lo yuchal bala, kida omar b'yavamas hamani mekayim achrei asher hutama l'rabo sota shenistra. And so again they admit that in those situations she'ein havlad mamzer, that the child is not going to be a mamzer, sharei adayin kiddushin omdim ba, because the kiddushin is still effective in those cases, meaning by the nida and by the sota. And again, if you're going to compare all arayas to one another, why is that the case? And the Gemara answered again that by nida it's a special pasuk with sihini dasa alav, and that says that it's an exception. It's not like all the other cases of arayas, and therefore the child is not a mamzer over there, and therefore the kiddushin will in fact take effect. And the Gemara continues, Michti, let us see. We're able to compare other cases of arayas to nida, where the child is not a mamzer, where the kiddushin does take effect, or we could compare it to achos isha, where the child is a mamzer and the kiddushin does not take effect. My chaz is the mikshas luhul achos isha. Why do we compare everything to achos isha? Actual nida, why don't we compare it to nida? And the Gemara answers, Kula v'chumra l'chumra makshin. And anytime you have a situation where you can go in a lenient direction or a strict direction, we go l'chumra, we go in the strict direction. And Rashi explains, l'chumra, we are strict, la'asos havlad mamzer, meaning we say that the child is a mamzer, shahamamzeris tuluyin b'kiddushin, and as Rashi said, mamzeris and the fact that the kiddushin is not chal, they're dependent one upon the other. D'chol mi she'ein lo olav kiddushin havlad mamzer. Anytime you have a situation where the kiddushin does not take effect, so the child is a mamzer. And the Gemara continues, Rav Acha bar Yaakov Amar, Rav Acha bar Yaakov says a different source how we know by these cases of arayas that the kiddushin does not take effect. Asya b'kal v'chomer miyavama, all the cases of arayas, of chayve krisus, they're learned down from a kal v'chomer from the case of yavama, meaning if a yavama tries to marry someone that's not the yavam, that's not her brother-in-law, that's called yavama lashuk, so the kiddushin does not take effect. And we learn the following kal v'chomer, uma yavama shehi belav, just like by yavama, which is a negative commandment, which is a lo saseh lo tafsi bo kiddushin, the kiddushin does not take effect. Chayve misos v'chayve krisos lo kal shekain, when it comes to chayve misos and chayve krisos, should that certainly not be the case, meaning certainly we should say that the kiddushin does not take effect. But the Gemara says, if so, shar chayve lavinami, if so, why are you only including chayve misos and chayve krisos? We should say by other chayve lavin as well, that the kiddushin does not take effect. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Papa says, chayve lavin behed yoksiv buhu, ki siyeno li'ishtei noshim. By the chayve lavin, there's an explicit pasuk that says, if a person has two wives, ha'achas ahuva v'ha'achas snua, one is loved and one is hated. And so the Gemara says, "V'chi yesh snua lefnei hamakom v'yahuva Is there such a thing as one that is hated in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or one that is loved in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Elo ahuva b'nisuah. Rather, what the pasuk means is, loved means to say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, loves that marriage. It's a permitted marriage. And sinua b'nisuah. And sinua means that it's a hated marriage. It's a hated relationship. It's a violation of a lav. And the Gemara is saying, v'kamar rachmana, and the Torah says, kisiyena. It says in the pasuk kisiyena, which implies there is havoy over there is kiddushin. So we understand by a situation of a lav that the kiddushin still takes effect, and that's learned from this pasuk of kisiyena. And Rashi explains, we learn all the cases of arayas from a kal v'chomer, from the case of Yavam Alashuk, Shein Kiddushin Tovsin, where there is no Kiddushin. Kidamar Rav B'Yavamas Minayin Shein Kiddushin Tovsin B'Yavama, like Rav says in Yavamas. From how do we know that the Kiddushin does not take effect by Yavama? Dechsiv, as it's written, Lo Siya Eishes Hameis Achutza, Lo Sei B'Havoya Lazar. We say again, Lo Sei B'Havoya, there is no Kiddushin to somebody who is a stranger, to somebody who is not her brother-in-law. Chayve Mises v'Chayve Krisos Lo Kal Shekain. So when it comes to Chayve Mises and Chayve Krisos, certainly the Kiddushin will not take effect. And the Gemara then said, if so, Shar Chayve Lavin Nami, Nihidalo Asi, Bekal V'Chomer. Granted, you can't learn Chayve Lavin from a Kal V'Chomer, because that's the same as Yavam Alashuk, that's also a Lav. But Naisi B'Binyan but you should use a Binyan Ab, B'Mematzinu, with what we call a Mematzinu, just like we find over there. Over here, it should apply as well. Mematzinu B'Yavama, Shi B'Lav, just like we find by Yavama that it's a Lav, Vein Kiddushin Tovsin, Von Kiddushin is not Chal, so Af Kol Shu B'Lav, Vein Kiddushin Tovsin, but so too by anything where there's a Lav, the Kiddushin should not take effect. And the Gemara then continued, Behed Yaksibahu, when it comes to Chayve Lav, and it says explicitly, Rashi says, the Tafsu, that the Kiddushin do take effect. Again, is there such a thing as one that is loved in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Rashi explains, Kolomar, what it means to say is as follows. Is the fact that the husband loves one of them and he hates one of the wives, is that something that's important to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that therefore we would think the inheritance would be changed because of that? That the Torah has to write, that the Torah has to write that you can't choose, you can't allow the one who's the son of the wife that he loves, he can't say that he's going to be the Bechor if he's not. It should just say that the Bechor has to be one that's recognized. I would know that it doesn't matter if his mother is the one that's loved or his mother is the one that's hated. And so the Gemara answered, Snua b'nisuah. What we mean to say is, let's say you have a situation where her marriage is hated by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shenisuah sunuim l'fnei hamakom. Again, her marriage is hated by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kagon chayve lavin. Exactly our case by chayve lavin. And so therefore the pasuk is saying you might think that changes around the rules of inheritance, but the Torah says it does not. The kamar rachmana kisiyena. And what does the pasuk say over there? It says kisiyena. Alma isbu ava. You see that there is kiddushin over there. Well, the kaman parach dilma b'chayve asay. The Gemara later is going to ask, but there's other kinds of violations. Maybe chayve asay. Let's say they violated a positive commandment with this relationship. To kamer, maybe that's what the pasuk is talking about. V'lo b'chayve lavin. Maybe it's not talking about chayve lavin. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Akiva da'amar ein kiddushin tovsin b'chayve lavin. According to Rabbi Akiva, who says that kiddushin do not take effect by chayve lavin, kisiyena b'may mukim. So what does he do with the pasuk of kisiyena? Again, the pasuk of kisiyena was saying that there's some case where there's a violation, but the kiddushin does take effect. And the Gemara answers to that, v'almana l'kohen gadol. He says the pasuk is talking about almana l'kohen gadol. That's a prohibited relationship, but the kiddushin will still take effect. Reb Simoy. It's like Reb Simoy says, the Tanya we learned in the Brayso, Reb Simoy Omer. Reb Simoy says, Min hakol hay Reb Akiva osa mamzer. From all the cases of chayve lavin, Reb Akiva says that the child is a mamzer, chutz me almana l'kohen gadol, except for almana l'kohen gadol. There the child is not a mamzer. Sharei Amra Torah, because the Torah uses the language over there by almana l'kohen gadol of lo yechalel, and we understand from that chilul mosetz. It creates a situation which is profaned. Ve'ein osa mamzeris, but it doesn't create mamzeris, and so therefore again that would be the exception. That would be what kisiyena is used for, according to Rabbi Akiva. And the Gemara continues with Rabbi Yeshevav, but what about according to Rabbi Yeshevav? Rabbi Yeshevav has a different understanding of Rabbi Akiva. Well, Rabbi Yeshevav da'amar bo nitzaveach al Akiva ben Yosef. Rabbi Yeshevav who says, come and let us defeat Rabbi Akiva's argument. Shahaya Omer, because Rabbi Akiva says, Kol she'ein lo bia b'Yisrael havlad mamzer. Anytime you have a situation where the act of relations is forbidden in Klal Yisrael, so the child is a mamzer, meaning to say even by almana l'kohen gadol, according to the opinion of Rabbi Yeshevav within Rabbi Akiva. So the Gemara says, Hanichol Rabbi Yeshevav. Now it's okay according to Rabbi Yeshevav If all Rabbi Yesheva was saying was excluding Rabbi Simai and saying that Rabbi Akiva only argues on Almona L'Kohen Gadol, La'afukim with Rabbi Simai, because he's just coming to exclude Rabbi Simai, so then Shapir, so then it's also okay, because then we can always say we're talking about, as we said before in Rashi, we're talking about a violation of an asay. Rabbi Akiva would agree that by a violation of an asay, so the child is not a mamzer, that's what we can say Kisien is for. However, let's say Rabbi Yesheva is not just coming to argue with Rabbi Simoi's case, but he's coming to say in general. He's saying by all situations of violation, Rabbi Akiva says that the child is a mamzer even by chai ve'aseh. So now, so again, what's Kisiyana talking about? What kind of act of relations, which is a violation, is still going to be good for Kiddushin? And the Gemara says, "B'bu'ula l'kohen gadol." Even Rabbi Akiva will admit by a bu'ula who marries a kohen gadol, meaning in a situation where she is not a basula, she's not a virgin. So to a kohen gadol, that is a violation, but it's still going to be a good kiddushin. And the Gemara says, "U'ma'ishna." So what's the difference by that case? Why suddenly that case it's a good kiddushin? The Gemara says to that, "Mishum dehavale asay she'in shava bakol," because that's already a mitzvah asay that doesn't apply to everybody. And so that's considered unique, and we say the Kiddushin is Chal. And the Gemara continues, V'Rabbanan, and the Rabbanan, Adamuki lo b'chai ve'lavin, instead of saying that the Pasuk of Kisien is talking about chai ve'lavin, Nukma b'chai ve'aseh, we should say the Pasuk is talking about chai ve'aseh. That's the kind of violation where the Kiddushin takes effect. And the Gemara says to that, Hani chai ve'aseh b'may ninu, what chai ve'aseh specifically are you talking about? We have a problem with each kind. Ishtein mitzrios, let's say you have a situation where the person has two wives and they're both Egyptians, it's a violation of an aseh because it's not yet third generation. So shtein senuo, so in that case both of the marriages are hated, and therefore it can't be talking about that. The pasuk's case is that the man has kisiyena leish shtei nashim, one is ahuva and one is senua. In a case where they're both mitzrios, they're both senuos. Iachas mitzris v'achas yisraelis, if one of the wives is a mitzris and the other is a yisraelis, so then one is ahuva, one is senua. But shtei nashim, but the Rabbanan will say we need it to be two wives from one nation. And bu'ula l'kohen gadol, if you're going to say that the asay that the pasuk is talking about is bu'ula l'kohen gadol, which is what Rabbi Akiva said, but miksiv tiyena l'kohen, the pasuk doesn't say tiyena l'kohen, it says ki siyena le'ish, and so therefore it's not talking about a bu'ula l'kohen gadol. How does Rabbi Akiva respond to that? Because he says the pasuk is talking about bu'ula l'kohen gadol. Rabbi Akiva will respond, Bal karchach shavke l'kra davidachik umuke anafshe. You have to say, you're forced to say according to Rabbi Akiva, since according to Rabbi Akiva, all of these cases of violations, the Kiddushin does not take effect. So you're forced to say that the pasuk is dochik, and so therefore Rabbi Akiva has to say that the pasuk is talking about bu'ula l'kohen gadol. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, "V'chol mi she'ein lo Allah v'chulu." Anytime you have a situation where the Kiddushin does not take effect at all, and the Mishnah went on to say, by a shifcha kananis and by a non-Jewish woman, there is no Kiddushin, and the child follows the mother. And the Gemara says, Shifcha Kananis Minolan, from where do we know this by a Shifcha Kananis, that Kiddushin does not take effect? Amar Rav Huna says, Amar Krutz, because the Pasuk says, Shvulachem po im hachamor, this is Avram, he tells his slaves, stay here with the donkey, and we understand that to mean Am Hadom Lechamor, we understand that it's a nation that's comparable to a donkey, and so therefore we understand that by slaves, by Shifcha Kananis, the Kiddushin is not going to take effect. And the Gemara says, Eshkechon de lo tafsi ba Kiddushi, we find over here that the Kiddushin does not take effect, and the Gemara will go on to ask, how do we know that the child follows the mother? And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Meseches Amid Beis.